So I used to have this soldier, right? I used to train lieutenants, and lieutenants, I used to be really hard on these lieutenants, because one of the things I expect out of leaders is that you can go further and faster than most of your soldiers. If you are going to lead soldiers, I believe you should be as physically fit and mentally strong as you possibly can, or don't step into that leadership role. So I was a little hard on him, probably harder than I should have been in some cases, but I had a young man, and usually if I got my eyes on you early in the program, the 16-week program, generally speaking, it was not going to go well for you over the course of the 16 weeks. And so what happened is I had a young man, and he was not well conditioned. He was not mentally as tough as he could have been, definitely not as physically tough as he could have been. And he was definitely getting onto my radar as a guy that wasn't going to make it. Now, we used to do these road marches, throw a rucksack on, start at 4 in the morning, about 50, 55 pounds, and go 10 or 12 miles, and we used to hold them to that 15-minute per mile standard. And they had to make it as one of the many gates they had to go through. And this year, my policy was, you do the road march on Friday morning along with everybody else. You got to hold with everybody else. If you don't make it at the end of the road march, what I do is we weigh your rucksacks at the end of the road march. So you can't shed gear, and your water doesn't count as weight because you drank your water during the road march. So it's 55 pounds plus a buffer plus your water, so you can't have any extra in there. At the end of the road march, we weigh your rucksack. If you do not make weight, then what we do is I'll make you train all day like everybody else does. You will sleep at the CQ desk. So we put a cot in front of where the guys are up all night. The lights are on. The radios are blaring all night. You sleep there, and at 4 o'clock on Saturday morning, guess what you're doing? You're rucking up with your 55 pounds. You're going to do it again on Saturday morning. And usually, if somebody was the kind of person that could not make the weight, generally speaking, if they didn't make it Friday and they didn't get to sleep Friday night, they weren't going to make it on Saturday, and it wasn't going to go well for them. Well, this young man was struggling, and he had been struggling the whole course up to this point. And I knew when we got in this road march, he was not going to do well. And sure enough, he was in the back of the pack. I was yelling at him, kicking him, coercing him all the way through the road march. And at the end of the road march, he barely squeaked by. I know he was done. He had nothing left in the tank. And as my NCOs are weighing the rucksacks, my NCO calls me over and says, "Sir, you got to see this." So I come over there, and there's this young man, soaking wet, shaking, and I said, "Oh, man, he's done. There's no way he's going to be able to do this again tomorrow morning. This is it. He's out of the course. He's going home." And my NCO takes the rucksack and lifts it, and it's 75 pounds. I said, "That's not his rucksack." He said, "Sir, it's his rucksack. His name's on it." I took it off him. I said, "Okay, do it again." So he lifted it again, 75 pounds. So I looked at this young man, who's clearly not the kind that you would have expected to make it. I said, "Son, what were you thinking? I know I expect a buffer as an officer. I know I expect you to go a little further. So I expected a buffer. But a 20 or 25 pound buffer, especially for you, is excessive. What were you thinking?" He said, "Sir," and he's still shaking. He's drenched. He's soaked. It's about 5:30, 6 o'clock, Georgia heat. He said, "Sir, I haven't seen my wife for 6 weeks. I knew if I didn't, she's flying in this weekend to see me, and I knew if I didn't make it through the road march, I wouldn't get to spend time with her. I wasn't taking any chances." And I looked at him, and I don't remember if I said it or not, but I said, I remember thinking, he just found his thing. He found what pushes him beyond what everybody he ever thought he could do. It was because he wanted to spend time with his wife, and he wanted to make her proud. And from that day forward, that kid changed. 8 to 10 weeks later, however long it was, I watched him. I watched him get chiseled out. I watched him go further than had ever gone before. See, he broke a barrier. His why took him beyond that barrier. And once he'd broken it, he realized, you know what? I can do this thing. I know I can. And it was an honor for me. I'm the bad guy in the story. On the last day of the course, as he came into my office, I had a counseling packet on him. He was chiseled. He was lean. He looked like an infantry officer. And I remember thinking, I didn't think you were going to make it. It is my honor to rip your entire counseling packet up in front of you, and you can throw it in the garbage because you've earned this. You did well. He made it. But he'd found what? He'd found his purpose. He found his why. And the why was bigger than him. And it almost always will be if you're going to get to that next level. Find that why, push yourself through it. You tasted a little bit of it today. It was about your teammates. Your teammates pushed you further than you would normally go. Had they not been there, you may not have had that opportunity. But if you're in the mountains by yourself, you still got to have this why. You still got to have the drive, or you'll quit sooner than other folks will.